There's one idiot in this room who is stupid enough to have pre-ordered a foreseeably bad Battlefield game twice. And there's no way I'm going to give them money again despite all the hype they've created and every emotional connection I have. Sorry, just 1 second. Hello? Wait, really? What do you mean they are bringing back Operation Firestorm on day 1? Every major Battlefield game so far has real countries opposing each other in the game setting. If you ignore the futuristic Pan-Asian coalition in 2142 and the police versus criminals-themed Battlefield Hardline. But Battlefield 6 has surprised everybody by ditching its United States versus Russia story that is more stable than a can of Spam left in Antarctica. And the playable forces have been replaced by NATO and Pax Armata instead. NATO is obviously still rooted in reality, but just what the f is Pax Armata? If we only look at the in-game setting, it's a fictional private military corporation or PMC funded by countries that have left NATO and potentially some other countries too. And the goal is to target NATO military directly and forces more countries such as France out of NATO by using show of force. But we'll have to find out because I wrote this before the game has been released yet. The producer of one major developer studio behind Battlefield 6, Christian Grass, said in an interview that this faction is designed to be a cool, relatable, badass enemy. Yeah, relatable. This guy from a private military corporation funded by global powers is going to bomb New York or do something horrible. Yeah, he's literally me. In all seriousness, this is not a bad faction design for Battlefield 6. In fact, I think it's quite genius. Russia's military power has been constantly displayed in today's media due to its war with Ukraine. And no matter if Russia is holding back or not, the prolonged conflict gradually diminished Russia's image to the West as a powerful enemy the longer the war drags on. And if you are wondering about China, there's no way you're going to see the Chinese military being antagonized because EA just spent so much in China marketing Battlefield 6. I know this because some of those beta gameplay footages I'm showing won't be possible without a friend of mine in China sending me an early beta access code because apparently Battlefield's official Chinese TikTok account was giving them away like free candy, so I was able to play the beta early without signing up for anything. Battlefield now has official accounts on multiple Chinese social media to connect with and advertise to its Chinese player base, which is a far cry from Battlefield 4 days, and yes, that game is still banned in China today. So for Battlefield 6, switching to a different threat that's fictional but still plausible can sell the narrative of a powerful enemy without being limited by real military status or lose a large portion of a big market. The game can also justify a more interesting mixture of weapons and equipment when it's not limited to just 2 or 3 countries, which is a welcoming feature for a video game. And maybe it is more relatable to be a PMC because you're not limited by a nationality, so if you hate all countries and governments and you believe taxation is theft, you can still roleplay as a humble killing machine. But what is the literal meaning of Pax Armata and what could it imply? The translation of the Latin phrase itself is simple. Pax Armata just means armed peace. But the use of the Latin phrase in this format that begins with Pax usually indicates a period of relative stability or order maintained by dominance. For example, Pax Mongolica, meaning Mongol peace, refers to the period of stability across Eurasia under the Mongol Empire. Pax Romana or Roman peace is a period of relative stability in Western history under the Roman imperial hegemony. You can even argue that Eastern Europe was in Pax Sovietica, I hope I pronounced that right, due to the Soviet dominance in the region during the Cold War. And there's also Pax Americana, which some may say we're still living in today since the United States still has its power projected everywhere, with others arguing the US dominance is diminishing and Pax Americana is a concluded period. You can read this whole wiki page about it. But the word Pax Armata is a bit different, right? Armata in this context means armed, not a country or a single power. The earliest usage of this phrase I can find goes all the way back to the High Middle Ages. Precisely in a series of allegorical, satirical poems written by
Johannes de Hauvilla
in 1184 CE. Here's the original phrase and its translation. I don't want to tank the retention of this video and make whoever is left fall asleep, but if you want to read it, feel free to pause the video to do so. Even with translation, a lot of those symbolism and expression is just no longer relevant to us. So I'll tell you what this poem is about. It is criticizing rulers who proclaim peace while stockpiling arms and plotting wars, with treaties made in bad faith while envy and discord rule the world. The context of Pax Armata here is an oxymoron. Peace isn't real, it's just a front. This so-called peace exists only because weapons enforce it and is held together by intimidation and deceit. Fast forward to the 16th century, we have this cute little emblem on an emblem book, which is a Renaissance genre mixing images, mottos, and explanatory poems. I like we joke about something modern that would destroy a Victorian child. Those are like the opposite of it. You see a cute picture, but there's like a poem you have to read and decipher, otherwise the picture doesn't make any sense. This will bore an iPad kid to death nowadays. Just take a look at this one. It's trying to tell you how awesome you will be if you click the subscribe button. And this type of books are used for teaching, but luckily this one with Pax Armata in it is not that deep. It basically tells that this supposed Amazon woman who is faking a smile while holding a sword entwined by olive branches is inspiring people to think about how is peace coming from violence or armament possible. Well, it's not, because there's war hiding beneath truces, and the current peace is most likely just a pause. You know, the whole olive branch is for peace and sword is for violence and war symbolism. I'm pretty sure you got it by this point. You can see this armed peace is not real peace theme remained relatively unchanged for like 4 centuries. But one may say there's more feeling of acceptance towards Pax Armata or armed peace in this one. The last 2 sentences can be interpreted as the fake peace is inevitable at this point, and people should be careful about it. And we do see more justification for armed peace using the phrase Pax Armata in the centuries afterward. Let's look at this inscription from 1621, which is quoted in this academic study published a decade ago. I mentioned this because I just couldn't find the original picture of the inscription, but I do believe this is a real inscription from the 17th century. It reads, "So that arms, no less than the spirit of the citizens, may be ready for every occasion of war, and so that an armed peace, the only secure repose, may be preserved." This feels more accessible to a modern reader. The theme of Pax Armata, peace maintained through readiness of war, is presented here not as a warning, but as a rationalized and justified necessity. This inscription is from Feltri, a town in the Republic of Venice. The idea reflects the tense realities of the era, as 1621 was in the beginning of the 30 Years' War, one of Europe's most destructive religious and political conflicts. Also, Venice was not a major participant in the war. The Republic lived in constant vigilance against the Habsburg power and other rivals. So I just want to pause here for a second. Do you know those really bad looking portraits? Apparently they're not bad paintings, they're supposed to be accurate. This is what the Habsburgs looked like due to inbreeding. Because of the looming threat, Pax Armata thus became a part of the civic ideology. Peace could only be secured if the state remained militarily strong and perpetually alert. And the only way to survive is to accept the status quo. There are definitely more references out there, but I think those 3 examples sum it up pretty well. And the idea of Pax Armata is not unique to the Latin language or just one culture. For example, both Switzerland and Sweden were big on armed neutrality during the Second World War, which is not far off from the idea of armed peace. I also mentioned Sweden's role during World War II in my previous video about how World War II Germany is a potential predecessor of Super Earth in Helldivers 2. Check it out if that sounds interesting to you. So yeah, Pax Armata means armed peace, but not usually in a self-defense or rights to bear arms way, but in an ironic sense implying real peace cannot be achieved through force. However, this fragile balance of power may just be the best thing people can achieve, and I believe this phrase is still highly relevant today, since the reason why countries are not nuking each other is because we have mutual destruction. Nobody has the technology good enough to intercept all nuclear warheads in a nuclear war. Peace is held by the fact that major powers can out-destroy each other if they have to. And with the bad guys being named Pax Armata in Battlefield 6, perhaps we'll see the enemy faction in the story as a product of the fake peace being exposed, with war hidden beneath finally unleashed due to some critical event. All as foretold in the ancient emblem. And you may just have a better interpretation of the game's story now. because you just learned the meaning of Pax Armata. Or maybe not, maybe the developer just thought Pax Armata sounded cool, then the game flops and I'll take the Fall for It Again award with yet another game of shame in my Steam library. But you know who I'd like to see fall for something again? You! I'm sorry, it's such a horrible bit. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you find this one interesting, you might enjoy the previous video or even the next one. Consider tapping that juicy subscribe button. Here's me rage baiting my furry furball. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Phase Off, signing off.